går var der 9 derude.
Det er rigtigt, det har så men shit.
Det tal, jeg kiggede var 9. Og der var næsten 4.000. 38. Er den tændt? Det er den. Tjek, tjek. Så Hello, and thank you for joining this live stream of SmallSteps Talk. I'm Anna from SmallSteps DTU. We are all about sustainability, but sustainability is more than numbers and academics. It's also about networking with people, getting to know what is a problem somewhere, how can I fix it, how can we collaborate. And here is someone from DTU who is extremely into the networking part. This is Trent from Carbon DTU, who has created a community for the students. So please welcome him.
And there we imagine the claps. Yes, hello people on the stream, and for those of you who are around the library that can hear my voice, just use it as white noise to help you concentrate. I'll try to be as non-interruptive as possible. Otherwise, feel free to come over and join us if you want to. But for those on the live stream, it's going to be perhaps a little strange looking at me talk to empty chairs, but I'm hoping you're at home listening. So I'm gonna hope that's the case. But I'm here to talk a little bit about our initiative that we have at DTU called Carbon. And we'll get into why it's called Carbon in a wee little bit. But as Anna said, it is kind of a social networking, integration and diversity platform for anyone who wants to come and meet a bunch of cool folks and do some fun stuff. And hopefully learn a little bit about diversity and inclusion in the meantime. So what do? What's Carbon? We like to focus on two things. Number one is this. We like to try and create moral worth and value for students at DTU on campus, that is to say, a feeling of belonging. One of the big buzzwords of the day these days, but an important one nonetheless. So we like to try and get folks that are starting on campus, also folks that have been here on campus for a while, to feel like they belong here. Because when you have a feeling of belonging, you have a feeling of worth, and you feel like perhaps you actually want to participate and do better at your studies. Hello and welcome. The other thing that we want to do is this, and that is give you the feeling of a right to self. Or in other words, we want you to feel like you can be your authentic self here at DTU. This is the diversity aspect of it. We don't want anyone to pretend they're someone they're not. If you walk around wearing certain types of clothing, religious or not, you should damn well be allowed to do that, and we want to support that. So that's what Carbon's about as well. We want to practice authenticity where we can. Be yourself and be okay about doing it. So that's basically the kind of stuff we try to encourage through Carbon. By the way, just a quick little thing. The logo, this is not officially our logo. So I just need to say that officially. It's not our logo, but it is our logo. It hasn't been approved by the communication people yet. But fuck it, right? So here we are with the background of Carbon. Where did we come from? Why do we exist? Why do we want to talk about diversity and inclusion on campus? Well, it all started back in the day through curiosity, like most things do. It's kind of a no-brainer, right? Started through curiosity, and this curiosity was bred by this. Some of you might know this graph, some might not. It's the International Student Barometer. It happens every 4 years. And it basically tells us how our international students are doing at DTU, and also around the world in relation to our locals, right? And one of the things that stood out to us was these two columns here. These two columns represent friends, basically, right? So the students were kind of asked, you know, are you satisfied with the kind of network you have? And it kind of got split up into two things. Number one, we've got this column here. I just realized the pointer doesn't work because it's a bloody television screen. But here is something called other friends. In other words, other exchange students, other internationals. Remember, this is directed at internationals, this survey. And that's all the way up to 90%. So generally people are like, yeah, we meet people. That's cool. That's fun. Awesome. Great. Where we really kind of don't have a great number is this one here called host friends. And host friends is locals. We wanted to do something about this statistic. We think that if you look at this statistic and sort of expand that to a logical conclusion, you can sort of say, well, it looks like campus is kind of getting split up into two areas, right? We've got internationals hanging out with internationals and locals hanging out with locals. And why everyone should be able to do what the hell they want, we wanted to sort of work a little bit with a bit of social integration. But of course, you kind of need to know what the hell you're doing when you're doing this kind of thing. It's a delicate thing to try and get people to be friends with each other without them wanting to be friends with each other. So we decided we would do a little survey. And the way this survey came about was we got approached by an American woman who wanted to do an internship with us. And we said, sure, we like free labor, but it wasn't free. She got a little bit of something for it. But anyway, she decided she would come, and she wanted to research about the inclusion, about the social aspect of DTU and how internationals are interacting with Danes. And we're like, you know what, that's actually exactly what we want to focus on as well, referring back to the survey. So we said, yep, why don't you come join us for 3 months? And she did a bit of a survey for us. And the survey was asking a bunch of questions, some of them a little bit cheeky, right? Like this one here. What do local and international students think of one another? So we basically asked the locals about the internationals, and we said, hey, locals, is it okay that the internationals are here? All right, a little bit provocative maybe. We also asked them, you know, oh, I'm sorry, no, I'm doing this the wrong way. I forgot my own slides here. So these are the answers. We asked the locals and the internationals what they thought of each other. Sorry about that. And these are the answers. So basically what the answers came back as was that the locals are like, yep, it's okay, the internationals are here. We're happy with that. That's no problem. We also got a feeling that some of the locals like, you know, maybe they shouldn't be getting SU. Apropos a lot of political stuff right now. We'll drop that one and not talk about that again because I'm not a politician. We were also found out that as far as the locals were concerned, they just like, you know what, we know that maybe they want to be friends with us, but just don't make us be friends with them, right? In other words, don't force us to do something we don't want to do. You can't really argue with that, right? You can't really force people to be friends with people. That's not what we want to do, and that's not very authentic, right? It's making people be friends with each other if they don't frickin' want to be. We also found out that culture was a little bit of a barrier. And this is a very broad aspect, right? To look at culture is seen as a bit of a barrier. So we're talking about, you know, ways of doing things, understandings of how things work, understandings of how DTU work, and all that kind of jazz. The internationals were asked similar questions, and this is what we found out, that internationals sort of the locals. Surprise, surprise, they'd love to meet the locals. It seems to be a huge desire from our international student body that they're like, we want to hang out with the Danes, and that's cool. That's great. We also found out that international folks, and I know I'm probably talking mostly to internationals right now, right? But international folks are generally fairly self-reflective about the fact that locals already have friends. You've probably heard the whole adage that, you know, Danes are very hard to get to know, right? Their social circles are so closed, you've got to break that, you know, ice, you know, over several years before you get a friend, kind of thing. So this is a self-perception that Danes have, but also one that internationals were a little aware of. And like, yeah, okay, we've heard that before. That, by the way, is a myth. On another presentation, I'll tell you why it's a myth. But Danes are not that hard to get to know. Just speak to them. It's very easy. Next thing, again, and this kind of matches up, culture seen as a bit of a massive barrier. In other words, again, ways of doing things, ways of seeing things, ways of understanding the way DTU works, all that kind of jazz. So what we kind of analyzed from that was a few different things. And the analysis or the answers, the analysis we got out of this was stuff we used later on to sort of figure out how we're going to work with integration, social integration and inclusion here at DTU. The first thing we learned was steer clear of social events. You probably think that's a bit strange. It is in hindsight. But this is kind of what we got from the survey. Mainly because we didn't want to just do pure social events like come and meet Danes and come and meet internationals. Because to us that was kind of like, you know, there's lots of social events already that exist. People tend to group up in their own freaking groups anyway. So doing social events where you say, come and meet other people, you usually hang out with your mates that you come with anyway, right? So we decided we'd try and stay clear of that. The next thing is we wanted to encourage organic relationships. So again, this is talking about the fact that we wanted to give an opportunity for people to get to know each other without saying, you have to get to know each other. Bit of a difference, right? The third one is that we wanted to, based on the cultural barriers, create a bit of cultural awareness initiatives through various events and activities. From this work that our intern, Kathleen, did, we got our first prototype of Carbon. And back then, Carbon was called International Campus Initiative. If you've been here for long enough, you might have heard of it. And our basic goal, basic mission was this one. Not a surprise, right? We wanted to look at inclusion, diversity, and internationalization. One of the problems we faced was using a word like internationalization sounds like we only want to speak to internationals, and that was not the case. As you sort of seen from the previous slides, our goal is to try and get people speaking together. We want to merge those two groups a bit more organically. More on that a bit later, but basically we wanted to focus on building skills for global workplace. So this is, again, trying to do people meeting organically and having organic relationships. So having scenarios and workshops or whatever that people could meet at for everyone, internationals and Danes, where they could get together and have a chat about a topic that is not, hey, want to be my friend. We want to shift thinking and attitudes to recreate globalization in the form of social practices that confront homogenization. That's an academic's writing right there, which was our second intern we got, which we'll meet in a second. But basically what this intern is saying here is that what we want to do is get people thinking about the fact that there is diversity around, right? Not that, sure, there's people who are from Germany, France, whatever, and they're like this, and then the Danes are like this, and then we don't think any more about it. We want to confront people with the differences, right? To get them aware of them, so that they can navigate them a little better. And the last thing, this is another wordy one, but social, cultural, moral, and ethical dimensions that transcend the narrow economic focus and establish a synergy with other normative agendas of inclusion and belonging. In other words, belonging. But when you get an academic doing this stuff, they go nuts, right? So these are the three main focuses on our first iteration of what we now call Carbon, which we call the International Campus Initiative. The way this was then set up was in the form of a team, and that team would consist of two interns, which we hired in from the European Solidarity Corps, it's called now. I think it used to be called something else, but we hire in two interns. They get a team of what we call electrons who help them as volunteers to do a bunch of activities and events and happenings, which are represented by these little thingies. These events could be a bunch of different things. Just a few examples of what they were back then. Arrival days, which is actually welcoming people in the airport. Quiz nights, competitions, and all that kind of fun, socially stuff, right? We also, based on the survey, decided we'd create a little rule for our interns to do these events by. So they had to follow this rule whenever they did an event. In hindsight, probably not the best way to start, but this was the rule. We call it the INTLOC rule, International Local Rule. Basically, it has to be academic-related content of whatever event they're creating, and it must have a certain amount of domestic and a certain amount of international students. That was the only criteria we put to the interns to do these things. And again, these are answering these points we found in the survey. The fact that we wanted academic content, in other words, not social content, so let's go meet people to make friends, but let's have other reasons to meet up and then hopefully have organic friendships from that. And then the fact that we needed two kinds of people there, or at least several kinds, domestic and international, was that there had to be a certain percentage there. So there was a bunch of events and activities that came from that, and it was done by this person here. Her name is Anna, and she was our first main intern with International Campus Initiative. And this is a picture of our electrons, who are our voluntary group who helps us do our activities, and they help us in various ways. There are people getting people in the airport. There are also people who come and hand out flyers for us, a bunch of different things. And these electrons were always given social events they could hang out with together. So we would reward our volunteers with paintball and escape rooms and that kind of thing. Right, from there, after Anna, we realized a few things. And we realized that we probably wanted, we probably wanted to think a little bit about, all right, do we really need to have that INTLOC rule? Does it make any sense? We have some activities like quizzes and movie nights and stuff like that, and competitions, but they weren't really getting much traction. So we thought, okay, let's have a look at what we're doing wrong, and let's see where else we can look to see what other people are doing with social integration with their campus students, or the people on campus. So we took a little field trip, and we went to KU Leuven, if anyone is from that area. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing Leuven incorrectly. But we went there to talk to them about their student or their campus student initiatives. And one of the first things that we looked at was what was their mission statement, because we wanted to see if there was anything we could borrow from that made sense, so that we could set some values that people could hop onto and say, this is what these guys at International Campus Initiative do. And, you know, there's all the key words in there. There's equal opportunities. There's, special attention paid to less favored groups. There's improving basic conditions and raising the well-being of students. All these kind of things. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. What else do these people do? And we found out, I don't know what that picture was, that they had this wonderful calendar here of a bunch of different events, which were kind of a bit bold, right? It wasn't just quiz nights and it wasn't competitions. It was stuff like Speaker's Corner, where people would debate together in a student space, right? Like the one in Hyde's Park in London. So they did Speaker's Corner. They had culture nights where someone from wherever the person who volunteered would come up and talk, give basically a presentation about where they were from and what things that they thought were weird, but also not afraid to tackle the big issues like coming from places as a refugee and how that was to come to a place like KU Leuven. So it was this boldness which we really, really liked from KU Leuven, which we didn't think we were doing that well. This is just another example of some of the things they do. They have these debate nights, round table nights, workshops, all this kind of stuff, right? So we basically said, okay, we should try and copy them a little bit and be a bit more bold in our focus in trying to get an inclusive campus happening. And the way we did that was we changed our value set and we came up with these 3 values. These 3 values make diversity visible. In other words, instead of making things happen organically or letting things happen organically, maybe put it a bit more in your face. This is the type of diversity that's here. We've got people from all over the damn world. Let's make that a thing that people can see. Make it clear what benefits and challenges there are with diversity. Another thing that KU Leuven seemed to do pretty well, which we wanted to borrow. So in other words, what kind of things do we see are problematic? Group work, ways that we look at doing group work, ways that we look at power structures, all this kind of stuff. And 3, create platforms for various people of various backgrounds where they can meet and exchange ideas. In other words, marketplace of ideas kind of thing. And this is where the sustainability stuff sort of comes in. But basically, these became our new focus point, and the interlock rule kind of died out because it wasn't really working for us. It just didn't make much sense to put this kind of restriction on there. So instead, we wanted to focus on these things. We also realized that Carbon is located in international education here in Aus, just over here at DTU. We also realized we needed to probably do some events that create to fresh arrivals from other places in the world. That's just a little slide to say that yes, we do stuff that's directed only at internationals, but our main focus is diversity and inclusion as a whole as well. So then we got the 2 interns to help us do that, and we recruited them through the European Solidarity Corps again. And they are these 2 wonderful people, Dora and Rhiannon. One of them still here, decided to study at DTU and works in the MSc office. You'll probably run into her if you do your MSc here. And the other is Rhiannon. Dora's from Hungary, Rhiannon is from Scotland/France, is how she put it herself. And again, we had electrons helping us here. Here we have them standing at what we call the World's Worst Candy Fair. The World's Worst Candy Fair is a representation of all those candies from all over the world which foreigners think are really disgusting in someone's country, right? So in Denmark, it's licorice for most people. In Mexico, we bought some worm candy that you dipped in salsa, which a lot of people just thought was super weird. And then there was blood candy from, I think, Hungary. There was a bunch of weird shit we bought because we thought it'd be hilarious. So it was a good also way to get people talking together and sort of trying each other's candy. All right, so this is the 3rd iteration. And we're still called the International Campus Initiative, and we're starting to get towards the goal that we really want, which is making people feel a feeling of self-worth, belonging, and making sure that people can feel like they can be authentic here. We decided after these interns' time was up that we would continue as normal, as we did. So we hired 2 more interns. But lo and behold, we had this thing called Corona that hit us almost immediately. That these interns got employed. So from the very start of the 3rd iteration of International Campus Initiative, we were hindered by Corona. So we had to do online stuff, and you all remember the online stuff and how fucking fun that was, right? We had to do that, and no one had ever tried it before. Everyone was learning how fucking Zoom worked, right? Where's the share button? How do I turn the camera off? All that crap. So it was not fun, but it also turned out that it gave us a lot of time to do some thinking. So we decided, you know what? Let's really push this inclusion, diversity agenda. But it sounds like I'm pushing an agenda, and I was, I guess. That was a well-phrased thing. We wanted to rebrand and rethink a little bit how we did things. Because even though the last iteration was relatively successful, we had events that were more focused around making diversity visible, talking about diversity, looking at benefits and challenges and all that kind of thing. We still weren't having a lot of reach. So we decided to go youthful and do a lot of social media stuff, or as the young people call it, SoMe. Thank you so much. I'm young, that's right. And then we hired these 2 wonderful people. That's me in the background. Forget that guy. That's when I had a haircut. That's pre-corona. You can tell. I look clean. But here we have Merve and Fedor. Merve is from Turkey. Fedor, and I'm saying his name incorrectly. It's Fedor, I think. He's from Russia. So anyone who speaks Russian around here want to yell at me for pronouncing his name wrong, I'm pretty sure he can hear me in Egypt, where he is right now, yelling at me, pronouncing it wrong after 2 years. Anyway, these 2, they are the reason we are called Carbon today. They sat down and they thought about, okay, how can we brand Carbon, or how can we brand International Campus Initiative to be a bit more encompassing, include a few more people, and really go a bit more, a bit more at it with doing the diversity and inclusion, so making it a bit more, obvious that that's what we do. So they came up with the name Carbon. The reason that we have the name Carbon is because what is carbon? Carbon is one of the most common materials on Earth that binds us all together. We've all got it in us, and it allows us to be different as well. It's a bridge builder, and that's what we do, right? I know, corny as fuck, but it kind of works. Nice abstract name. So we thought Carbon was a great name. Being that Merve and Fedor both are social scientists, and I'm a humanist, we also thought we were being super fucking smart because carbon is like engineer stuff, right? So that was... That was our logic. We thought we're really fitting in. And of course, our volunteers are called electrons. Eh? You see the thing? Yeah, he's nodding. Right, so these guys decided to rebrand, and they didn't only rebrand, we also rethought. So we thought, okay, our mission statement before was just diversity, inclusion, internationalization. Let's go deeper, right? Let's talk about what we actually want to do and put it in a mission statement. So we came up with this mission statement. To create an inclusive international campus for all students at DTU. Bam. And then, in lieu of Corona, there was something else we've seen a need for, which I think a lot of people have as well. We tacked on in the end to combat loneliness and isolation, which was relevant then. And even though Corona is still going on, we're not isolated anymore. There are still people feeling isolated for other reasons than just being locked away in their house. So this is also one of the things we want to do. Our vision basically entails that we want to look at diversity and inclusion. We want to create dialogue. We're going to create platforms for dialogue. We're going to create platforms for understanding. We want to create platforms for learning about other people and how they work. That's basically what we want to do. And of course, we get our value statement down the bottom. Social inclusion, diversity, equality, dialogue, tolerance, upskilling, cultural competence, all pretty standard stuff, right? But the vision there is our main goal, right? That's what we want to achieve. So, iteration 5, full steam ahead, that's where we are now. Maybe you've heard of us, maybe you haven't. But stage 5, full steam ahead, it's these 2 awesome folks. This is Anya and Anya. I didn't stutter, both their names are Anya. They are Anya from Russia and Anya from Serbia. They were both called, well actually Anya from Russia, her name is Anna, and the other one's name is Alexandra, but we didn't know that when we hired them. They both said, actually our preferred name is Anya from birth, so they're called Anya. I don't know why I'm harping on this thing, I just don't want you to think I'm crazy, I suppose. But Anya and Anna, so they're working with us right now, and they're creating a bunch of events, have done so this semester. Hopefully you're following our Facebook page, which is Carbon/DTU or DTU/Carbon, one of those. Otherwise, Carbon DTU, you'll find us, where we try and put all these values and mission statements into life. One of the worst things about doing mission statements is not doing anything about it, right? So we have a little ritual, which is maybe a bit culty, but it works for us. Every morning on a Monday, they have to read through the mission statement. And any event that they're doing, they have to relate it to that mission statement. It's an exercise in relation, right? Just to make sure that we are going to follow that mission statement and don't go off on tangents, right? Which is super important for us. So just to give you a little taste about what exists out there right now, this is both stuff that's gone and stuff that's coming. There's only one event left this semester, actually, I think. We've done everything from international stranger lunches, candy fairs, movie nights, bike trips, board games, Cooking with Carbon, which is a cooking show, Weird Science Fair, which got cancelled but will hopefully come up next semester. We haven't done this one yet, but hopefully doing it soon. A bunch of different things on top of this as well. We're also doing a bunch of trips. We went to Måns Klint with a bus, which we paid for. We also went to Odense with a bus full of students as well. And this is both for international and Danish students. You don't have to be an international to go on our bus trips. They're not tourist trips. They're get-to-know-you trips, and let's see some sights. To pull out a few examples of how all these events relate to our mission statement, here's an example. Film and debate night. Our film and debate nights, which have been up and running now for this semester. The idea is we watch a film, a seemingly harmless film, right? I think one of the first ones I did was, and forgive me, I forgot the damn name. It's the movie about the three African women who were working on, Hidden Figures, that's it. Hidden Figures was the first night we did, and the idea is that you watch Hidden Figures, then afterwards you stick around and you have a little bit of a debate/discussion about the different themes in the movie that were prominent. In that case, of course, we're talking about women in science, what role gender does role play, and then basically it's a forum for people to talk about stuff and try and get to understand why these things are important. This is one of our favorite ones. This one here was also one of my favorite ones when people came to it. International Stranger Lunch. This was to deal with our well-being and isolation issues. Basically, we wanted to set up a table around the canteen where people could just rock up to if they had nowhere to go for lunch or if all their friends are out doing something else, and they could just meet a bunch of random strangers. And if they weren't good conversationalists, we had prompts here for them. So it's stuff like, you know, if you invented the world's best power source that doesn't run out of power but can easily be transferred into an atomic weapon, what would you do? Would you use it or not? You know, that kind of stuff. Pretty lighthearted and low-key, but just to get people started and conversing, right? This is one of my favorite ones. The other one, which I'm a fan of, which we've had varying success with, but our first ones are pretty good, is Cooking with Carbon. Cooking with Carbon is kind of like one of our well-being, one of our belonging events, in the sense that we want everyone to sort of get to know different dishes from around the world that students make. Because, you know, student food in Denmark is like pasta and tomato sauce. In Denmark you call it ketchup. Australia we call it tomato sauce. You'd have pasta and ketchup, right? That's like your student meal with a bit of tuna on it out of the can or whatever the fuck it might be. We wanted to sort of make a platform for people to share different student meals around the world that were a little bit more interesting. So the first one we had was a gentleman from India, and he made chicken fricassee, I think it was called. Oh, don't know if I got the name right, but it was a really simple chicken curry dish, and it was delightful. So this was a platform so that people could see different ways to be a cheap student when it comes to food. You don't have to eat pasta and ketchup. There's a world full of flavor out there you should get to know, right? Right. That's just more pictures because apparently I like myself too much. All right, there's me again. Okay, that's me putting ketchup in someone's food. Don't do that in a real life. So that, in a nutshell, is where we are with Carbon at the moment. Right now, we've just sat down and worked on our next semester for events that help fulfill our mission statement. And we're going to be doing a bunch of trips again. One of which will be a 5-day trip of Denmark, which we've got funding for, but will still cost a little bit of money. We've got trips to Odense, we've got trips to Måns Klint again, we've got film nights, we've got debate nights, and we have, what else do we have? A bunch of other stuff I can't remember because it was today in a 3-hour meeting. But they'll come up on our Facebook page about the end of December, if you're interested in that. But yes, that was it from Carbon. One of our favorite sayings, and one of my favorite sayings to leave you with, is this one. Seek to understand, seek to be understood, because cultural understanding goes two ways. Thank you for listening, for the invisible audience and for the people at home.
Please stay. I have a question for you, because you said something during this presentation that I found very, very interesting.
A lot of things.
Yes, I've been speaking to so many students and employees at DTU during the whole Small Steps concept and app we're launching. So all the time I hear that Danish people are very difficult to get to know, and you say it's a myth.
Yeah.
I am very sure a lot of people will find that provocative.
Yeah.
So can you please explain yourself?
Absolutely. So the first thing you hear when you come to Denmark is Danes are hard to get to know. Guess who tells you that? Danes.
No.
Yeah. Danes are the people that tell you Danes are hard to get to know. When students come here, most of the people that give them, this is what Danish culture is about. It's usually from people from here that say, Danish people are very hard to get to know. For me, it smells a lot like circular argumentation, and it smells a lot like a myth, what's it called, a self-fulfilling prophecy. And, I give presentations to folks at Dunedin for dignitaries coming from, West Africa and Mexico and China, and we talk about this as well. And they ask, they say Danes are hard to get to know, but when I speak to them on a bus, they answer me. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it is. I mean, they're not approachable, right? I think we confuse the fact that Danes are hard to get to know with the fact that the personal space bubble in Denmark is a little bigger. And I think they're two very different things, right? So getting into that personal bubble is a skill, sure, but it doesn't mean Danes are hard to get to know and cold and isolating, right? I find that to be a complete and utter myth. And if we keep repeating that myth, our students and Danes will keep doing this, and we don't want that to happen. Right.
I had this very interesting, to continue, I had this very interesting talk with someone who said the same. We were difficult, as I'm Dane, we were difficult to get to know and to become really friends with. And then I said, but what is really friendship? Like, could there be a difference of the level where you feel you are a friend? Could there be a cultural difference with what is a friendship? And also they said, well, Danish people are very quiet, but once they get a drink or two, they become more extroverted and they're more fun and easy to talk to. And I said, that's great, you just need to go to parties. And they say, no, but when I get a drink, I'm very extroverted, I get introverted. So we talked about, could there be a perfect level to meet, like a perfect amount of drinks to be on the same page.
A perfect amount of alcohol blood level? Yes. I don't know about that. But okay, so you asked about, like, is a different, tackle the friendship thing first.
Yes.
So yes, I think there are different ideas of what people consider friends, but I don't think they differ that much as we think they do. I think what is different is the stage at which you call someone a friend, right? So one thing which a lot of Spanish people I know find very difficult when they're mingling with Danes or Northern Europeans, generally speaking, is that, back in Spain, depending on where you're from, you just invite your mate along to a party, right? It's not your party, it's someone else's party, but it's kind of a normal thing to drag that person along. Doesn't really happen here. So that act in itself, that you'll be talking to a Dane, as a Spanish person, for example, and being like, the Dane's like, I got a party going on this weekend. It's going to be really, really cool. Or the Dane, the person, right? I got a party going on this weekend, and got lots of friends coming. It's going to be great. Or my friends from high school, or whatever the fuck it might be, right? And then the Spanish person's like, oh, okay, cool. And then when the conversation ends, this person turns around and walks away, and the Spanish person's like, why didn't he invite me? Right? So there's that difference in expectation. So a Dane is also thinking, you don't really mix friend groups that much. And here we're being very essentialistic, right? We're generalizing immensely. Not all Danes are like this, obviously.
That's the best.
But I think this is definitely an experience a lot of folks from cultures or from societies and communities that are a lot larger in terms of who they, quote unquote, care about, meet when they come to Denmark. Is that they see this as a signal of, like, they don't like me. You know what I mean? And this is why this cultural understanding stuff is super freaking important. If you knew that to start with, you'd at least think to yourself, it's not because they don't like me, this is just how it's done.
And the
right?
thing is, once you first get that thought, they don't like me, you don't seek them anymore.
Exactly, it's
and
a
they
stopper.
never get the chance to develop that friendship. And you never confront them, you just think they're a douche or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you for answering the question. You don't have any questions? All right. I think we'll finish off the live stream. And before we do that, I'll just present you with this present. Thank you.
Oh, lovely.
This is a book about the new teal organizations, which you are actually on board with without knowing.
Yeah, I don't know what teal is still, but...
No, it's about where everyone decides whatever they want to do with the time. And how to contribute to the whole and stuff like that. You'll love it.
Sounds like anarchy, really, isn't it?
Yes, yes, we like it.
But cool, I'm looking forward to reading it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for watching.